Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Andrew Wright, and for this week, I know we wanted to talk about kind of what putting ourselves in position or in a position of a professor or an instructor of U.S. history, and kind of going through these different topics and figuring out which ones would help the most and which one would give our students the best learning outcome. This is a good situation, a good topic for me because I actually currently, and I have for the past year, 2 years, taught American history, among other topics, American History 1 and American History 2. And there are a lot of things that you have to get across that I believe you should want to get across to your students. I think the first thing you need to talk about is colonial America and how the colonies were affected. Um, One of the topics that I use is by a gentleman named David Ramsey. It's called the United States History of Revolution. It basically talked about not just the Revolutionary War and actually not a lot in general, but just what led up to that, why revolution was necessary for the colonies, and what was the effect of the revolution of the American Revolution on the colonies and even on the British. I think that's something that, unfortunately, for a lot of places are going to 8 week. I know we were where I currently teach at Ottawa University. We were once 16 weeks long, and we trimmed it down to 8 weeks. And although that makes preparing for the course a lot easier, it trims on what we're able to teach, and we kind of have to cut the fat, so to speak, on a lot of topics. But I think that the revolutions is not something you can cut the fat on. I think that's something you have to talk about, why it occurred, what led up to it, um, and those types of things. Another thing, being a military historian, one of the things that I've learned is that whatever your expertise is in history, or whatever your research skill is in history, or your research passion is, those things spill over in the classroom, and that's not a bad thing. It's actually a very good thing. And one of the things that I would try to do is incorporate how conflict and how war has transferred our nation. Another topic by Increased Mather. It was the Indians of North America, although I don't like to use that term, Indians. So I'll say Native Americans of North America. And it talked about the Native American Wars, because that was an important part of America. Because sometimes when we talk about U.S. history one, we want to, or U.S. history in general, not just one, but we want to, sometimes we want to limit it to how we got to become a nation and not what happened once we were that nation. And that's important. That's why I think talking about the Mexican American War, the Civil War, those things, and the war with the Native Americans. I think those things are very important. The War 1812. There's a lot of conflicts that might not be major to some people, but I think those things are important because they show how the nation was shaped. And they give you the opportunity to have good learning outcomes for your students, because it's important for them to know how the nation was shaped, not just militarily but economically. When we talk about the Great Depression, about some of the things that we went through with polio, is that there's so much that you have to pack into these 8 weeks, unfortunately. But I think if you go that route, you'll have the best learning outcomes for the students, and it'll be the things that are most retained by them if you go that route. If you pick the big things that matter to you, regardless of what your specialty is and what you think will matter to the students. That's why it's important to get a good feel for your students and what they feel is important. So you can balance out what you need to teach them and what is important to them, and find a medium. And I think that's when you'll have the greatest success. But I'll be interested to learn how you guys feel, and I look forward to having this conversation this week.